Rising from the ashes. Apparently things on my side are okay. Maybe just refresh. How's it going there? I'm not seeing any signs from my end that there's any issues. How are you? How's the practice? Are you rising from the ashes? What is it about people being around that makes it harder? Do you get drawn into other people's words? Other people's thoughts? People are busy, aren't they? You learn to be selective after a while. It's not hard to identify where people are at quickly once you meet them and you talk to them, or you're in their environment for a little while. You soon get an insight into where they're at and how much to engage and how much not to engage. And how to maintain stillness when possible. People are good for training. They're good to remind you of your training. And to remind you what it's like when you don't train, when you don't govern yourself effectively. People that do things isn't a problem. You can allow people to do things, but it's when people expect you to be pulled along with them, or when you allow yourself to be pulled along with people who always are busy and always want to be doing things. So multiple questions arise, why do you allow yourself to be pulled along by people? Do you allow yourself to be pulled along by people? When you don't want to be? Sometimes there's a benefit to another person or to you to allow yourself to be pulled along or to be pulled into a situation. But then other times you're pulled into a roundabout that just goes around and around and around. And it's more draining than anything. When you identify that, you have to bring a stop to it. If you identify that that's what's happening, you have to bring a stop to it. You're trying to gather your energy and gather your stillness, to gather yourself in stillness. And so obviously, if there are people around you that are pulling you into unnecessary movements, then obviously you have to bring a stop to that. That can be hard. Depending on the person, depending on the practitioner, and depending on the person or the people that are pulling you along, and your attachment to those people, or your fear of hurting their feelings. And that's what I mean by you have to be selective. You have to be able to defend yourself. Because you can just leave people alone. If those people want to be busy and doing things, well, it has nothing to do with you ultimately. But if you're unable to keep a distance from that activity when you want to keep a distance, it's you that's got the problem, it's not them. Most people are just doing what people do. Things. They're doing things. They're doing things they want to do. And that's fine. It has nothing to do with you. You just have to govern yourself. And that's where that's where some practitioners find themselves struggling because they can't effectively govern themselves that way. They're too afraid, or they're too guilty. They feel too guilty. They feel too afraid. And then obviously that's what they need to be working on. So people are good for reminding us how to train better. Those types of people, anyway. The busy kind of people. So what are you struggling with? Are you struggling with anything? Or are you just making an observation? Physical pain. Are we talking about meditation here? When are you experiencing physical pain, and where are you experiencing physical pain? And how are you struggling with discipline for the practice? 2 questions. Explain the pain to me a little bit. When are you experiencing that? Is it all the time? Or are you talking about while sitting in meditation? And second question, what exactly are you struggling with regards to the discipline for the practice? Oh, maybe you've explained it there. Your mind is coming up with all sorts of excuses at the moment. Are they legitimate excuses? And what are we talking about exactly? If I am wanting to spend more time sitting in meditation, and that's an objective that I have, then my mind can make up all sorts of excuses to not do that specific goal. If we're talking about awareness, though, nothing can get in the way of it. If you're around other people and they're busy, or there's pain, it makes no difference to awareness. You are watching all of those things happen. And so there is no barrier to the practice with regards to awareness. But if we're talking about sitting in meditation, then yes, there can be lots of barriers to that. Well, you've got a very deep block when it comes to the pain in your neck, because it's with you all the time. Those types of, from my experience, those types of blocks. Okay, just see how you go with the stream. Yeah, like I said, I'm not seeing anything on this end with regards to, it lets you know here if your signal is dropping out, and it hasn't so far. So yeah, just try and bear with it. Maybe just keep refreshing your screen if you need to, and remember that these talks are being uploaded onto YouTube, so you can look at the YouTube channel if you want to catch up on it later. Your internet may need to be turned on and off as well. If you're having a problem with this regularly, you can turn the router off and on, but I wouldn't do that now. Anyway, with regards to physical pain that's a constant, from my experience, unless you've got some sort of debilitating physical condition, if it's more of a mind-based pain, to go very deeply into relaxation and meditation, and that's in terms of a practice, an exercise, to lay down and go into a meditative state and release the tension in that area. You have to focus in on it and around it and relax very, very deeply. But if you're doing something throughout the day, a specific behavior, an action, for example, that's causing the pain, then you have to address that as well. So you have to, lots of people, when they have these certain movements, it becomes a habit over many, many years, and it's connected to an uncomfortable element of their psychology, something going on internally that they find uncomfortable, that they're trying to get away from, and that can be very hard to identify. Mindfulness, awareness is very good at helping you to identify what is it that's going on internally that you're trying to ignore or get away from, that you don't want to look at. So there's multiple avenues of attack, multiple avenues of healing that you need to be looking at with regards to that. You have to identify what it is. So that's with regards to the pain. You've mentioned that you can see it's worse when you're anxious, which tells me that it's connected to your anxiety, which tells me it's connected to your stress levels. And so learning to govern yourself throughout the day in a less stressed manner is where you begin. And then you learn to you learn to identify when your thinking descends into anxiety, because there are sources of anxiety. Let's just use this language for now. There are sources of anxiety that are external to yourself. They're not really, but somebody walking up to you and point with a sharp object and threatening to stab you is quite anxiety inducing for most people. You are still responding to it, and it is possible to not respond to those situations where you don't feel anxiety. But in the beginning, you're encouraged to remove all sharp objects from your environment, all sources of stress and anxiety and frustration. Then what you tend to notice is, as you spend a lot of time alone without other people around and without distractions. I do this because there's no such thing as distraction. It's only a distraction because you have an objective. Your objective is to identify deeper processes of your psychology and of your makeup. Okay, so you take your attention off of other people and lots of things and you bring your attention inside. But what you'll find is you will still cause yourself anxiety internally, and that's when you, via your thinking, and that's when you start to realize, actually, that's the whole process. It's possible to not experience anxiety around other people if you govern your attention and your thinking in a certain way, but it's hard to identify that, and so you spend a lot of time alone learning how to identify these processes within you. So you have to see what that is. What are you doing internally? When it's habitual and you've been doing it for so long, you won't see it, or rather it'll be very hard to see because you are so used to doing it. It is such a habit that it's just automatic, and when things are automatic, they can be hard to see, so you slow down. That's one of the early steps. Slow down, start to practice mindfulness, start to practice meditation, especially sitting meditation, but also actual meditation where you're just watching and paying attention with mindfulness. And then you'll eventually see the connection between what's going on internally in your psychology and the pain that's manifesting, and whatever the movement is, or however you are causing yourself pain, you'll identify it. Then you have to recorrect it. You have to correct it through, well, lots of forms of redirection and governing your attention in a different way, and resistance as well for some of these behaviors. Essentially, your psychology has an addiction, and so you have to cut that off, redirect it, reprogram it, overcome it. Self-hypnosis and hypnosis and hypnotherapy are all excellent tools for that. If you haven't learned how to very deeply relax when you're anxious, your body will try to come up with some other mechanism to calm you down. Some people drink, some people take drugs, some people smoke a joint. Other people, well, there's all sorts of methods. But a lot of those methods can, manifest in other forms of discomfort. They lead to other forms of discomfort, like taking drugs all the time, for example. You start to become dependent on the drugs, then you start to experience anxiety when the drugs aren't around, which, it's just a snowball effect. So with regards to the natural method of conquering anxiety, although a better way to word that would be releasing anxiety, is relaxation. Relaxing the body and relaxing your thoughts and relaxing your mind, actually, too. So this is what you have to do going forward. You have to look for this on a daily basis, and you have to learn to master your behavior and change your psychology, change the way that you're thinking about things and the way that you're responding to your own anxiety. And with regards to coming up with excuses, well, there are many ways to convince yourself to practice. You will convince yourself through deep suffering if that's what you need. Do you need to ignore this for so long that it becomes unbearably painful to the point where then you will do something about it? Or has it already gone on long enough? Is that enough of a motivator for you? Not sure if you're still here, but maybe you're watching this on YouTube afterwards. Hopefully that's given you a couple of pointers. If not, feel free to jump back in at any point or connect up on the Discord and send a message. With regards to the pain, there's two levels, two ways. One is the relaxation. Guide yourself into very deep states of relaxation. That will release the pain, relax the pain anyway. So that's more of an immediate remedy. The second element of it, though, self-hypnosis, you need to have identified the cause that's causing the pain, what's causing the pain. There'll be an element of psychology and an element of physiology in that. Depending on what type of pain it is, it could be only purely psychological, but let's just say, for example, something occurs psychologically. You experience anxiety or some kind of uncomfortable line of thinking, a fearful thinking, and then you've built up a habit of cracking your fingers to deal with that anxiety, and the act of cracking your fingers distracts you from the uncomfortable psychology and brings about a sense of release and relief in the body. But after years and years of doing that, your fingers are going to be extremely painful because you're habitually cracking them all the time when you become anxious, and you become anxious all the time, so you're always cracking your fingers, which means you're always in pain and you're stuck in a feedback loop. A very negative feedback loop. So, getting back to self-hypnosis, deep relaxation will remedy the pain in the short term, and then You learn to identify, or you have to identify the cause. Let's just say, for example, that the experience of engaging in psychology, so this is quite a complex answer. It's not complicated, it's complex though, so I've got to do a little bit of a roundabout here, okay? So just bear with me. I'll give you an example. I'm sitting here now, and I can relax very deeply. And I can release any kinds of pains that I've got going on in my body or any kind of mental distress. I can release it. I can just let it go, and I can tune into a very, very deep relaxation and serenity, which is healing. Feels great. But somebody comes into my room, opens the door. Immediately, although I am in my own center, releasing and relaxing deeply, I'm blissing out, you know, I'm falling into bliss. Somebody comes into my room and starts to talk to me. Immediately, the moment my attention falls on that person, I just see them, and my mind immediately has the impression they're about to talk to me. I'm no longer deeply relaxing. I'm no longer releasing the pain. That's just the immediate effect. They haven't said anything yet. So my mind is anticipating that this person is about to say something to me or wants something from me, and so my mind is now, in that fraction of a second, on that person, and it's frozen. Just for a second, it's frozen on them. It's no longer looking deeply within, it's no longer relaxing, it's no longer letting go of pain, and it's doing the opposite now. It's entered into a fraction of a moment of tension, of anticipation upon that person. And so then they start to talk to me, and they're telling me things about themselves, and if I continue to engage with them now, I have to follow along with their language and their psychology and their thoughts and their views and whatever it is they're talking to me about, and I have to continue to keep my attention focused in their psychology. Let's just say that my flow has been interrupted, okay? If I do that constantly all the time, all day long, at the end of the day, I will be in agony because of the amount of micro tensions and micro stresses that I have built up throughout the day. Then I will go and be very deeply alone, and I will release all that and let it go and go back into my own private bliss where I release all of that burden and pain. Great, it's a wonderful skill to have. So let's say that that's the cause that I have identified. I have identified that when lots of people take my attention for extended periods of time and expect me to engage with them psychologically, and I go along with that, it hurts me. I feel pain because of that. It's weird, but that's just what I experience. I have identified this, so what do? Well, I know that if somebody walks into my room and opens the door and expects me to engage with them, I can look at them objectively as if they're a brick in the wall, and I don't know who they are. I have no idea what they're doing. I have no idea why they're here. If they start speaking to me, I just watch their words, and so my psychology is not engaged, and my flow is not interrupted, and so I can maintain my deep relaxation and openness. And when I say openness, the sense of my mind being open to the present moment and not caught up in their fantasy, their thinking, their illusions. And when I do that, I don't experience pain. So if I have identified that, then I need to turn my self-hypnosis work towards that line of work, as in, well, there's many methods of self-hypnosis. You can master your internal dialogue and talk to yourself. You can use visualization to program your thinking and see yourself responding in the way that you want to be responding. Oh, there's many methods. There really is many methods. One of my favorite is to conjure an internal angel, like a guardian angel or a demon, depending on which way you're inclined. Just a friend, an internal friend who's going to jump in at those moments where those situations happen. For example, when people are around. I'm just using an example here. When people are around, if this is a source, if this tends to be one of those moments where I fall into distress, and that then leads to the pain. When people are around, my guardian angel will jump into my awareness, my mind, and just drop little hints, little flashes of memory. Remember to relax. Don't get caught up. Don't get too caught up in it. Don't play into it. Just maintain your center. Anyway, so this is just an example. You can use self-hypnosis to do that if you want to. But you have to identify the cause. If you don't have a cause, self-hypnosis, all hypnosis work needs an objective. If the objective is to deeply relax, then that's the objective, and so your hypnosis work facilitates deep relaxation. You are hypnotizing yourself all the time with your internal dialogue and the way that you think about things and the way that you look at things in the world and the things that you look at. You're being hypnotized right now by engaging in this conversation. My body and my thoughts and my words are influencing your thoughts and your behavior and your words. So you have to take control of these elements and make sure that your life is unfolding in the way that you want, your psychology is unfolding in the way that you want, your environment is influencing you in the way that you want it to, and that includes, obviously, the people that you're engaging with, and the way that you're engaging with the people, and the way that they are engaging with you. If you don't take control of these things, they will. And most people have no idea what they're doing with regards to influencing. Only people that are awakening or awake, becoming conscious, even remotely care about the influence that they are having on the people around them. So, if you're dealing with unconscious people, good luck trying to get your message across. So with regards to using self-hypnosis to help it, you've got the deep relaxation. That's the immediate remedy. Do that now. Do that tonight. It's going to lessen the pain. But you have to use your mindfulness and your awareness to identify what is causing this pain. Once you've identified that, you can then become very specific. While also doing your deep relaxation practices, you can start to program the psychology and program the behavior of the body, which is done through the brain, to make sure that the body no longer, or let's just say to make sure that you stop doing whatever it is that's causing you all this pain. So that's what you do. That was the complex roundabout answer. And if you don't do that, chances are it won't remedy itself. Yeah, there's no problem. So there's another way to do it, alright? There's another way to do it that's not the most recommended or the most efficient. You can guess. You can do your deep relaxation exercises and then you can guess What were you thinking? I'll just answer that. What were you thinking? But I'll just say as well, if you are not yet able to identify the cause in your psychology or your behavior, you can guess, and you can start to look into things like guided meditations and guided hypnosis for anxiety and stress, things related to stress. Sometimes people get stage fright, they get nervous around other people, they are overthinkers and they think too much about negative things. You can pretty much guarantee that you will suffer from those conditions. And so just applying generalized self-hypnosis to those problems anyway, it's like, I don't know, throwing a hammer into Bunnings. There's a good chance you might hit a nail, and you might hit the nail on the head. You know what I mean? It'd be better if you walked in knowing exactly where to go, because then you can repeat it precisely, masterfully, repeat it. But if you want to take a guess, it's going to be something to do with anxiety, most likely self-worth, negative self-talk, fearful anticipation of the future, letting people down, people pleasing. You know, these are all very generalized blanket conditions that most people suffer from in one form or another. And so you can go down that road if you want to, or get very specific and develop a very strong mindfulness and see for yourself what you are doing that's causing the pain, but you've got to catch it in the moment. You won't be able to remember. This stuff happens too fast. Memory is too slow and inefficient. You got to catch it right now. All right. Sit there. That's not a good enough answer, by the way. It's a good answer, but it's not good enough. It's not going to help you identify it. That's the problem. Memory is too slow. If your mindfulness isn't developed well enough, you won't see it. So I'm saying I appreciate the answer, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough for you. You've got to go deeper than that. If you've been avoiding these thoughts for a long time in your life, they'll slip through you like a slippery serpent as quick as possible because you let them. Demons, in a way. Little dark corners of your psychology that you don't want to look at. And so, of course, you have to do something about this. You cannot make excuses to have elements of your mind unseen with regards to self-mastery. You can't. If you're serious about self-mastery, you can't make excuses. You can't let yourself make excuses, because if you do, believe me, there'll be some very, very deep, dark recesses in there with all sorts of creatures in them that will manifest in all sorts of weird and destructive, self-destructive, negative, toxic, putrid ways. So you just can't make excuses. When you identify that you've got a problem, that problem should sit now at the forefront of your consciousness on a daily basis. If it doesn't, you will not catch it if you don't remind yourself day in and day out, looking for the source of this problem. I have a problem. I have this problem. I need to find the answer. I need to find a solution. And not obsessively thinking that, but you must remember often throughout the day that you're looking for this problem. If you don't, you'll just let it go like you always have. And so you can't accept the excuses, you know? And after a little while, you will have identified it. So go back in. What was the not nice thought that you had towards yourself? It's still in there. Go in, close your eyes. Go into it, be brave. What are you doing getting distracted by a Twitch stream? You are this close to identifying something, and so it's still there just beneath the surface. It was only moments ago that it happened. And so, of course, you can close your eyes and go in there and see, start fishing around, be honest, be brutally honest with yourself, furiously honest. Don't let yourself get away with it. Don't let your ego hide anymore, you know? See if you can identify it. Then we can talk about it. At the time, we were talking about self-hypnosis and what you can do. So we're talking about negative self-talk here. Do you experience a lot of negative self-talk? Well done, by the way. That's a great answer. That's how you do it. You were this close to letting that slip, you know? It was right beneath the surface, but you went in and you caught it like a slippery fish that's trying to get off your hook. Don't let it. If it starts to get off the hook, dive in after the bastard and grab it with your bare hands if you have to. Well, that's a good sign. Do you engage in much conscious positive self-talk? Ever? Why not? The body doesn't have its own beliefs, do you understand? The body responds to whatever you tell it, as if that's real. But the body, are we talking about the body? The body is not yourself. The self, this so-called self, is the thing that's doing the negative talking. So what is it talking about? What is this negative self referring to when it says it's not good enough? What's not good enough? Itself is not good enough? It's a feedback loop. Or is it referring to the body and the way the body looks? Because that's a little bit different. So the body doesn't know what's real. The body doesn't know what's happening. If you sit with your eyes closed and visualize a shark attack, a shark swimming up next to you in the water and biting into your side, your body will start to tense because it thinks that is happening. The body itself, it doesn't It doesn't have its own reality, the body. It's just doing what you tell it. It's responding to what you tell it. So whatever you've got going on in there psychologically, the body is manifesting and materializing because that's what you're telling it is happening. So if you're feeding the body with the psychology of toxicity and negativity, then of course the body becomes toxic and negative because it's just doing what you're telling it to do. It's not going to make up its own mind because it doesn't have its own mind. It only has you. You're the driver, you know. It's not going to drive itself. If you leave the body drops. It just turns into dust. Well, first of all, it turns into a bag, you know, a floppy, squishy, mushy bag on the floor because you're not in it anymore. So what that means is there is no psychology separate from you in there. If you leave, the psychology dies. It's gone. It's disappeared because you are the source of that psychology. So you can't expect the body to fix itself. If you're in there driving it off a cliff, it's going to drive off a cliff. It's just doing what you told it to do. It's not going to make up its own mind. I said that before. Okay, so we can't rely on the body to fix the problem. So the psychology then, what's the psychology referring to? It's stuck in a negative feedback loop. I don't like myself because I'm not good enough, because I can't achieve all these aims, and I don't like the way my body looks because my body looks ugly. And so the body is responding to all of that and feeling worse and worse and becoming uglier and uglier and more diseased. And so the psychology says, I'm getting sick. I don't like myself anymore because I'm getting sick, and this makes me feel worse about myself. And so it's a negative feedback loop. If you jump in there even once, just once, for 10 seconds. Michaela Lemon, hello, welcome to the chat. I haven't met you before, I don't think. Maybe I have, I'm not sure. If you jump in there even just once and start to condition that psychology to feel good, to love the body, to embrace the body, to accept the body, to send this loving, beautiful warmth. Thank you for the follow, Michaela. It's nice to have you on board. If you send this tranquility, love, acceptance, it really just boils down to love, you know. That's what this comes down to. You send this psychology of love. Take control. Your vehicle is out of control. Meaning your psychology is out of control. It's gotten out of control. You've left it alone for too long. You need to take the reins back. Start driving it into some love and happiness. But you're going to have to do that on purpose. You're going to have to do that consciously. You're going to have to step in and think consciously about beauty. Not an imagined idea of beauty, but of accepting the beauty of your body, the fact that you have a body and that this body needs your love. It needs you to drive it towards love and warmth and beauty and kindness because it can't do that by itself. If you step out of the body, it drops to the floor. If you allow your psychology to be toxic and negative because of conditioning, most of the time by your environment and your childhood, the body is just being driven towards that because that's where you're driving it. So there's nobody to blame, and you have to stop making excuses. But if you step into that conscious psychology once, immediately the benefits are felt. The effect of that love, support, warmth. Get rid of all the judgment. Get rid of all of the criticism. Get rid of all of the self-hatred because not good enough compared to that person, not achieving the goals that I once upon a time wanted when I was 18 and I'm still holding on. You put all of that down, all of that kind of toxic psychology, useless psychology, and you start again. Refresh, reset. From this moment on, I'm going to think this way. Inside my body, I am going to think this way instead. I'm going to look towards not other people that are beautiful. That's not what I mean when I say beauty. Not a model of beauty in a person who's got a certain kind of body, and I'm a woman and I'm looking at this woman's body and I want to be like that. That's not what we're talking about. We talk about beauty. We're looking at nature, freedom, serenity. Have you ever seen a monk, a Buddhist monk? You know, they don't look in mirrors very often. They shave their head all the time. They've got dry scalp. They've got hairs coming out their nose, hairs coming out their ears. They've got crusty bits in their eyes. Some of the most beautiful people you've ever met in your life, because they are just full of joy and happiness and serenity, because they cultivate that all day long. But if you looked at their physical appearance and judged it based off of a model of beauty, you would say they're ugly. Physically ugly, they're fat, or they're really skinny. Anyway, just an example. Turn your consciousness towards beauty, serenity. Stop chasing after all of these fantasies and social media socialites and representations of perfection, so to speak. It's all a lie. And that is not the beauty that will turn your psychology towards love. That actually will turn your psychology towards envy and jealousy. Because you're not that, and you're never going to be that. And even if you could become that for a while, it's temporary. And all of that will fall apart as your body ages. So don't go there. Stay away from all that stuff. And so if you take control of your psychology in this way, after a while, about a month, if you do it all day, every day, you won't be the same person internally. The pains will have massively decreased, if not totally gone. The health issues will have dissolved, because now you're feeding love and serenity and joy and freedom and relaxation into your body, instead of judgment and criticism and hatred, self-hatred. Well, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the breakthrough. You've got to break through. If you don't break through, you stay stuck in the same spot. Let me just change this song. Actually, never mind. This one is allowed. Yeah, you've got to get to the breakthrough, you know? If you don't, you're not breaking through. If you're in a jail cell, if your life and mind has become a cell, a jail cell that you're stuck in, and you seem to be stuck on this loop, just going around and around and around, nothing's changing. How can you expect to go deeper or higher without some kind of breakthrough? The walls you have to bust down the walls or the floor or the ceiling. Something has to crack. How are you ever going to get out of the jail cell if nothing cracks, you know? So that's what you're looking for. That's what we're cultivating. You can cultivate those breakthroughs when you get familiar with them enough. You cultivate them. That's what conscious cultivation means. We don't just stumble into this. It's a science. These breakthroughs are manifestable, cultivatable, conjurable. That's what mysticism is. It's the science of awakening. Most people, I think they maybe just stumble across it, you know? It happens to them accidentally in their life, and they don't realize that that's just one layer and level of it. Once you start to cultivate awakening, now you're talking about real practice. Anyway, I rambled on a little bit there. Thanks for inspiring that. It's good stuff, isn't it? It's all connected to the pain. Stop running from the pain. I know it's hard. Stop hiding from it. Go and be with it. Go and be with the pain. You know, one of my favorite inspirations in this life, Thich Nhat Hanh, a Zen Buddhist monk who died last year, I think, or at the beginning of this year. I don't know. He died recently, very recently. There's a great talk, and he's gone into this a few times, but there's a great talk I watched of his a few years back, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he's talking about pain, and he's sitting in front of a group of monks and a group of practitioners. These are cultivators, Buddhist. They use the Buddhist model, and he's talking about how to deal with pain. You can Google it on YouTube. Google tube it, Thich Nhat Hanh or Buddhist monk, how to deal with pain, and he's talking about being totally present with your pain to the point where all of your psychology turns towards that internally. That means I sit with my eyes closed and I talk to my pain with my thinking, and I say, hello, old friend. Come, sit down, relax. I'm here for you. My old friend, my old pain has come to visit me again. Welcome. What have you got to show me? What have you got to teach me? I'm going to be here with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here just for you. Let's sit together. Let's embrace. I'll hold you. I'll hold my pain. And so I turn my mind towards my pain and I go into it instead of like most people do. Oh, I got to get up and run around and do this and do that. Okay, there's a time for that. It's not always possible to go deeply into your pain. But when you're alone and there's no one else around, well, there's nothing getting in the way except you at that point, and that's when you go into it. And obviously, someone like Thich Nhat Hanh spends their life, basically 95% of their life, in deep aloneness. Look it up. I paraphrased a bit there, but it was something along the lines of that as a practice. And I do that all the time whenever I experience pain. When I get the chance, if I'm not dealing with my kids, or if I'm not talking to people or engaging with a student, if I have experienced pain throughout the day, I know, okay, the day is done. Now I let everything go and I go deeply into my pain, and it relaxes and it releases, because the source of the pain is gone. The stress of the world, the anxiety of the ego, the frustration of the moment, whatever it is, you know, the world, all of that's gone when you go into deep meditation. And so that is the source of the pain, you as the ego. So when you get that out of the way and relax very deeply, very, very, very deeply, the source of the pain is dissolved, and then so of course the pain is dissolved as well. Cool song, eh? I'm going to turn it up for you real quick. not sure if you're still there, Michaela, but you joined us in the middle of something very important, so I had to get that one out there. But welcome to the chat. Nice to have you on board. Welcome to the channel. And how you doing? How's life? Could I, if I turn it up, it's not going to be too loud, I'll do it. Good to see you still here. Don't have to talk, but feel free to talk if you want to, okay? Mystical mental health is all about a very, very important and fundamental realization that to learn to watch your psychology and watch your mental health creates a distance between you and your psychology, at which point awareness is realized, and if that can be maintained, every single one of the issues of mental health is dissolved. And so the reason I bring that up is because the ultimate way to cultivate that distance and realize that separateness from suffering is to learn to watch. And so there's no pressure to talk. You can just sit and watch and be present. So you're welcome to do that if you want to. But of course, if you've got any particular things you want to bring up, you're welcome to do that too. Tell you what, I'll give you a little treat here. Ready? Don't know if I accidentally muted then. I meant to say that's what we're looking at here with this song. It's on YouTube. When you say lots of trauma and grief recently, do you mean the trauma and grief has occurred recently, or recently you have been looking at lots of trauma and grief from your past? Are you finding it helpful to look at it? Is it helping you to let go? Are you letting go? Is there something about the past that you can't let go of? And when I ask that, I mean, if there's something about a past trauma that we didn't or don't understand, if we still have questions around it, it can be hard to let it go. Especially if the questions are important. Sometimes it's not wise to try to go back though. Sometimes. I'm just speaking generally here because I don't have very much information about what you're referring to. The answer to that question what answer do you think would help you to let it go? If you can come up with some hypothetical answers to the why did they happen? What answer do you think would allow you to let it go? I know that's a hard question to answer because there's a lot of potential answers to it. And there are, some answers are very simple, some answers are very complex, but ultimately all we're looking for is an answer that's going to help you move on, right? Let go. So we have to explore that. What answer could help you let go? Are you struggling to accept these things? To accept that they happened? Are you struggling to accept the reality? by the way, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but in reality, the why doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter and that it's not important to you, but the reality is that these things happen. That's the reality. That's the truth. These things happen. If we could accept that fully, really, truly, deeply accept that these things happen, and if we can be on board, if we can be aligned with that reality, truly, I mean, like a real full acceptance that these things happen in human experience, that's the answer, that's the answer of reality. But obviously, on a more personal level, there are very specific reasons why somebody might. What I'm assuming here is that your father, well, I don't need to assume it, you've said it in the statement that he ended his own life. So obviously there are specific reasons, but those can be extremely complex and deceptive. Suffering is the reality, obviously there is a deep misery, and he wanted to get out of that, and that's clearly, he thought that's the way he wanted to do it. So, what do you need to know? Because a subjective answer is hypothetical. That means you'll never really know if that's the truth, because how are you ever going to find the answer to that question? He can't tell you, you can't ask him, unfortunately. So we have to make sure with regards to these things, and when I say these things, these are the really deep traumas of the past, the sort of things that we like to think won't ever happen to us, but they do sometimes, and it's horrible and it's traumatic. And there are many things we can do with these types of experiences psychologically, turning them into great strengths, seeing the lesson, seeing the value, and that's really hard. That's really, really hard to see. And when I say the value, I mean to reflect on the reality of suffering and the reality of death, and the reality of loss and limited time. We have a limited time together, and sometimes our time here becomes unbearable and painful and deeply distressing and miserable, to the point where we would rather die than continue on. These are realities, these are real hard truths of the human experience for some people. And from my point of view, it's very wise to look at reality. If you want to know how to approach these things truthfully, in a way that means you'll be able to handle it because you're looking at the reality and you're accepting the reality and embracing the reality. Now, a lot of grief will come from that, because reality, as a human being, it's tough, it is hard, it's full of lots of love and joy and beauty and wonder and amazement as well, but it's also full of anxieties and stresses and loss, and the ending of relationships and the letting goes, and dreams, lost dreams unfulfilled promises. This is all part of the human experience as well, but that's all on a much more personal level. So what we try to do is turn our attention towards the truth of the situation, objective truth, not subjective truth. Subjective truth is more that's more how you want to see it. Objective truth is reality unfolding, right? And the truth is that some people's lives become so unbearable that they choose to end it because it's too hard for them to look at what's going on, or they don't have the tools, or they don't have the resources, or they don't have the support. It's all kind of the same. It's, the good thing about looking at these things honestly, that means you learn how to stop yourself from falling into the same type of hell. That's hard though. That takes a lot of reflection and a lot of real deep honesty. The kind of honesty that brings you back to reality, which is hard to look at. That's called piercing through the ego, right? It's very difficult to do that. But the reward is tremendous because, well, you get to the truth, and when you find the truth, you get to relax. If you can accept it, you might fight it for a long time. You might fight the truth. But eventually you'll accept it if you keep going, if you keep looking at it, and if you really deeply want to accept it. And accepting means letting go, alright? When you accept it, okay, I can't change this. This is what happens. This is what has happened, and I can't change that. So I accept that. Okay, now I can let it go. I will let it go because I want to, because it's too painful. Can you accept that? Is that enough? Is that good enough for you? That doesn't mean the pain won't be there. It doesn't mean the grief won't be there. But the grief is no longer traumatic. The grief at that point is natural. It's okay to be sad at the loss of a loved one. It's okay to grieve that. Grieve deeply and then let go, right? Accept it. If that's good enough, your mind will be able to move on. If you can embrace the grief, if you can love it, and by that I mean really hold it, hold it. Accept it as part of the human experience. This is the part that you're up to. That's okay. It's not permanent. It doesn't last forever. But if we fight it and try to deny it, it will hover, and it will become a real it will become a real pain. Do you have your own children, Michaela? Okay. Have you ever heard the saying, the Lord works in mysterious ways? Well, life works in mysterious ways. Sometimes growing up with a loss like that, and because of that missing piece, a question around it, your psychology evolves around that question. It can give you a tremendous insight and strength for the life that you are to live. And by that as an example, when you have children, if you have children one day, you'll know the pain and the grief of not having a father around. And so maybe you will go out of your way to work extra hard to make sure your children do have a father, And it's this weird, very unusual and strange and hard to accept as well. This element of life and the way that it unfolds for each of us, it's unique and weird, and sometimes you don't understand it, but it's happening. So the wisest thing to do is to accept it and to go with it so that you don't suffer unnecessarily. And that's what is meant by the Lord works in mysterious ways. Life unfolding is often out of control, but we scramble to try to understand it, and because of that we suffer. Often we suffer. Sometimes all you can do is just lay back, relax, let things be. If there is grief, embrace the grief. If there is loss, embrace the loss. If there is anxiety and pain and fear, embrace that. Be with it, You have no idea what these things are teaching you. And you won't know until you get onto your own deathbed, at the end of your own life, what this life was about, what you learned this time around. So sometimes if you're on a journey, the wisest thing to do is just relax. Go slow. Allow the journey, And then there's less struggle. Because the past is the past, isn't it? It's done. No matter what we no matter what we come to understand, it's gone. All of it. Every part of it. The people, the places, the possessions, the things, the experiences, it's all gone. And all we have is right now. That's all we really have, isn't it? What's happening now, where we're at now. And so if we can turn our psychology towards the now, well, we suffer a lot less, because we're not trying to hold on to anything that's gone. And in fact, we're just living with the now. That's hard to do though. Don't get me wrong, I understand it's hard. It takes training, cultivation. Develop the skill. You don't have to say anything, Michaela. No pressure. Just know that it's okay. That you're okay right now. We have psychological disturbance, in our thinking, only in our thinking. Okay, sometimes there are abusive and difficult situations around us in our environment which can be addressed and can be faced. But if that's not happening to us right now, we are actually okay. We might have a disturbed psychology, we might have problems in our thinking, and okay, that could be there. But in our physical environment, right now, the body is present. Hopefully we're not too hungry or too tired, too thirsty. We're alive. Hopefully we're warm, sheltered from the weather. And right now we're just here, having this experience right now, together, right? And it's okay to be there, to be with that. Sometimes we look for problems, right? We look for problems, don't we? We think we've got a problem. Maybe our psychology is disturbed. Okay, alright, well that's that. But my actual experience here is fine. Sitting in a chair watching this really trippy picture on the screen with some nice music in the background. Just having a conversation, all of that's fine. I think I would have to conjure a problem, right? In my thinking. Surely there's a problem here somewhere. But my actual experience, the happening of the present moment, there's no issues. And so it's also okay to be there. We call that resting in the present moment, coming home. It's okay to be present and to just be okay. It's okay to be okay too. And that feels like resting, yeah? I'm just going to let go of all of my issues for a little while and rest. Because it's exhausting trying to fix them all the time and understand them all the time and change them all the time. Maybe I'm okay with the way things are right now, and that feels like release and relief. And I'm just going to be okay with it for a bit. See what that's like. It's like forgetting myself, I forget myself. It really is exhausting and seemingly unending, You get to the bottom of one psychological issue and you unlock 3 more. And you get to the bottom of one of those and you unlock 3 more. And it's a never-ending cycle, it seems. And so it's also possible to just put that down for a while. There's nothing wrong with playing around with psychology to try and understand it and to gain insight into it. change your perceptions and thoughts and change your opinions and views. Okay, that's all fine. But it's like it doesn't really seem to bring any real release or relief from the stress. It is exhausting. So to know how to stop that for a while and just put it down, let it go, let it rest. We're not ignoring it, we're just saying, I'm just gonna let it sit there for a bit and think, well, maybe I don't have to do something about it right now. Life's not so bad when I look at it right now. I'm okay here in this moment. As it's happening right now, I'm okay here. I can be a little bit content in this moment right now, having this interesting experience. I can rest there for a little while. It's like giving yourself permission to just have a little break and go on a little holiday. We were just talking a little earlier about taking a break from the busyness of life, you know? Some people don't realize that psychological work is connected to the busyness. It's a mental busyness, you know? And okay, there's a time to be busy and there's a time to get things done right. But there's also a time to stop. Rest, mentally as well as physically. And one of the things we tend to find when we rest mentally is that it's very, very healing and rejuvenating and calming. And often it's like this weird, it's like I think I was trying to get to that place. With all of the work that I was doing mentally, I was trying to get to that point where I would finally relax. Not realizing that I could have just relaxed anyway. By putting down that mental work for a while, just accepting things as they are. Resting my attention and my awareness in my body. Tuning in to the present moment, I can rest. Even if it is just for a little while. Well, Michaela, it's been very nice talking to you. Rising from the ashes? That is true. That is right. And reflecting on that is wise. Coming to accept that. We talk about that, don't we? We say it psychologically. The past is the past, let it go. And yet our brain still dwells on it. It still visits the past and it still haunts us with memories of things that have already gone. So we can't just say it. If we really want to feel that, we can't just say it mentally, we have to live it. Are you living now? Are you Are you governing your brain in a way that makes that a reality? Are you living now? Are you living in the present moment? Are you living and loving deeply the people around you now, the people that are here, including yourself, including this opportunity of life happening now? Are you living now? Because that is the same as fully feeling that reality is that you can't change the past. We can say that psychologically, but that won't make a difference to us if we're not feeling that reality. So yes, that is the reality, and we must live that way now. Feel that. It's obvious, isn't it, when you look now at the present moment? It's obvious that you can't change any of that. You can't do anything about it. It's obvious, isn't it, when you really look at it? And so I look at this present moment and I say, what is it right now that I can do right now? What do I want to do now with this body, with my life, with my loves, my relationships, my children, my friends? How can I embrace this moment totally? And that means, that is fully letting go of the past. That is living that. And then doing that, living that way through time, trains our brain to be able to let go of the past in an instant, because we're just living in the present. And we are so deeply tuned into the present that we can't hold on to any of it anyway. The past, it's all gone, you know. What's done is done. And so I am done with it. What's the point in holding on to it? If I am deeply tuned into the present, I am learning in the present moment. So I don't need to learn from the past. I learn from the present. Anyway, it's late here. I'm going to go, but it was very nice talking to you. And I hope this was something positive for you to experience. And I hope you'll join me again someday soon. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for saying hello. Sometimes it's good to just say hello, isn't it? You never know what kind of conversation you're going to have. So I'll say goodbye for now. My face is behind the chair. I'll say goodbye for now, and hopefully I'll see you again, alright? It was nice talking. Hope you feel better. Feel free to check in anytime, say hello if you want to, or just hang out. Sometimes it's nice to know that you can just hang out and that there's no pressure. You don't have to speak. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to fix anything or change anything. You can just hang out with me in the present moment. Alright, so I'll see you later. Bye for now.